Today we will continue our discussion about rectilinear kinematics, and in our previous lecture we discussed about continuous motion. Today we will learn about erratic motion, or those motions that are changing. Okay, so this topic is more applicable in real life situations. Okay, so what are we going to discuss for today's lecture? So in this lecture, we will be drawing the position versus time graph, or ST graph, velocity versus time graph, acceleration versus time, and acceleration versus position, and velocity versus position graph. So all in all, we will be dealing with 5 graphs. Okay, so these graphs will represent the motion of the particle, or the object that you are going to study. Okay, so first, looking in this diagram. Okay, so what have you noticed? So this is the position versus time graph. Okay, so ano sa meaning ani? Ang meaning ani niya is the object is changing its acceleration, no? From 0 to t1. This equation represents the motion of the object. Kani different time frame from t1 to t2 represents lahi na po siyang characteristic. Okay, so ang pasabutan nila ani, ang imong object is still moving in linear direction, no? Pasabutan ni wala siya ga-move, dili ni siya pasabutan niya nga ga-move siya in a curve. Pasabutan niya ga-change ang iyang velocity. As makita niyo diri, corresponding velocity versus time graph. And this is the acceleration versus this one, acceleration versus time graph. Okay, so makita niyo diri at 0 to t1 kusog ang iyang increase sa velocity. t1 to t2 lain na yung behavior, nag-decelerate. Okay, so this is for ang mga actual nga mga vehicle. Ngayon no? Sometimes mo accelerate, sometimes mo brake, mo hinay. So, saan na to pag-analyze ang iyong motion? So, that is what we are going to discuss today. Okay. So, if you are able to graph these 5 graphs, then you can represent the motion of the object. Okay. First is the velocity versus time graph. Okay, so if you are given at least one of this graph, okay, sample given ganing position versus time graph, you will be able to generate the velocity versus time and this one, acceleration versus time graph. Pabali pwede gyapon kung kaniyang given, pwede naman siya makuha as well as this one. Okay, let's start with position versus time. Kung given ka ani, how do you get the velocity versus time graph? You can get that by using this relation. Velocity is just the derivative of position versus time. Since from 0 to t1 naamo na sa equation. So kung nakay equation nga position versus time, you differentiate that one. So makakuha kag equation pud ana nga velocity. So kadto na dayon imong when you plug in the values for time equals 0 and time equals t1, you can now plot this one. And so on. Okay? The same way sa AT graph, kung makuha na nimo ang velocity versus time graph, naapod niya siya equation, you differentiate that one, you can get the acceleration, this one. Later on, we will have an example in order to illustrate this one and mas masabtan ninyo. Okay. What if given ang acceleration versus time graph and you need to get the velocity versus time and the position versus time graph? So what you need to do is you reverse the process. Instead of differentiating, okay, since ang imong objective naman ani is kani, then you integrate para makakuha ka og value sa imong velocity. Okay, so it is illustrated in this manner. Okay, kung naana kay makakuha man kag equation ani nga velocity as a function of time. So, i-plug in mo ang value sa time ato, you can now generate this one. As well as for position. Now, let's proceed with VS and AS graph. Actually, the same ram ng ilang concept ani. No? You just have to remember nga kung given ka og AS, can get that one by integrating. Okay? Integrate mo siya using this equation. Now, kung bali na po velocity versus position graph ang given, you differentiate using this equation. Okay, medyo wala kayo siguro may nasabtan, but we will have an example in order to illustrate that one. Okay, so let's have an example to illustrate the concepts. Okay, so you have a bicycle, it moves along a straight road such that its position is described by this graph. Now, you need to construct the VT and AT graph for 0 to 30 seconds. Okay, so what we have here is we are given the ST graph. Okay, and we are asked to find the velocity time graph and acceleration time graph. Okay, so ano siya itong unang buhatan na ni? Okay, first we'll use this equation. Okay, in order to get the velocity versus time graph. So this is just straightforward. We will divide this graph in terms of its time frame from 0 to 10 and 10 to 30. Why? Because lahi-lahi man sila og equation, no? Beyond the ray from 0 to 10 kani ang behavior sa imong vehicle. Okay, so from 0 to 10, velocity is just the derivative of this one, derivative of t squared. So that is just 2t. Okay, so ipasabutan ni, meaning ang imong equation ani karon will be described by this 2t. So kani siya is just linear. This is a linear graph. So sana siya pag draw. Substitute the values at t equals 0, v equals 0. When t equals 10 seconds, v equals 20. The unit is, this is in feet. This is t in seconds, so this is 20 feet per second. Okay? 20 feet per second. So we will now plug in this one. So you have 0, 0 and 20. This is 20. And okay, so this is the graph for this one. Okay, let's proceed from 10 to 30 seconds. 10 to 30 seconds. V is just this one, derivative of this one. Derivative of 20t minus 100 is equal to 20. So sa kasabutan ni meaning ani constant. So pag ako dire constant na rin siya. Ana. Okay? So ang imong bicycle ani karon from 0 to 10, siyempre kusog increase yung velocity, increase denoted by this one. Pag abot sa 10 seconds, constant na siya, maintain na lang, maintain. So may pasabutan ni. Okay, now we proceed with the acceleration versus time graph. Again, this is just straightforward, no? Since nakuha na nato ang velocity versus time graph, so ang equation, di ba? Ato na isulat ang mga equation ani. Kani v equals 2t, kani v equals 20. Kani itong gamiton in order to draw the acceleration versus time. Okay, so from 0 to 10, acceleration is just derivative of 2t. Derivative of 2t is equal to 2. Okay, constant. From 10 seconds to 30 seconds, acceleration is derivative of this one, 20 dt from 0. Okay, so draw na nato ni Saron. Pag abot yun niya dire from 0 to 10, constant. The unit is per second square. So ito na siyang i-draw dire. Okay, so muna siya kung i-label natin yung 2, and then from 10 to 30, 0. So ano rin ni dire, and then kani ana. So muna na siya. That's it. That's the velocity and acceleration time graph. So from kung given ka og position padung sa acceleration, what have you noticed? Notice ninyo nga ang iyang degree sa iyang equation, sa iyang line is ni gamay, may decrease, no? From 2 na himong 1 na himong 0. From 1, degree 1, from himong 0, degree 1, degree 0, and kanina himong 1, 0. Okay? First order, second order, no? Second order na himong first order. Na himong constant. So ana na siya magkagamay kung siyempre kayo mo bang i-differentiate. Now kung pabalik ka, kung given ang kani 80, kauning duha, ang kuan pala siya, magsaka po ang exponent kay integrate man na. Okay, we will have an example for that. Okay, so let's have another example wherein ang given is ang acceleration versus time graph, and then you need to get the velocity versus time and position versus time graph. Okay, So you have a car in the figure and it starts from rest. Okay, so the initial condition is at t equals 0, velocity is 0. And travels along a straight track such that it accelerates at 10 meters per second squared for 10 seconds. And then decelerates at 2 meter per second squared. So since decelerate, so nasa sa ubos, no? Negative 2. Okay. Draw the VT and ST graph and determine the time T prime. So this one, T prime needed to stop the car. So kung saan mahunong ang car? When maabot mo ng T prime wherein kung mahunong na ang car, meaning na ang velocity nimo is na 0 na. Okay? So at T prime, velocity of the vehicle is already 0. And then we are asked, how far has the car traveled? Okay? So we can dire kung makuha nimo siya kung naakay katong position versus time graph. Okay, first this one. So at t is less than 10, no, from 0 to 10, we get the velocity, dv is integral of a dt. Get the integral and then specify the limit. So at t equals 0, v is 0 at na kani 10t ato ibutang, no, from 0 to t and from 0 to v. Nga naman para makuha na to ang equation. Makuha na to ang equation, we will be able to graph this one. So this one will be v is equal to, now your a is 10. So butang na to dire, integral of 10 dt from 0 to t is just 10t. Okay, 10t from 0 to t, or 10 just 10t. 10t. Okay? So this is a linear graph. So expect na linear ang imong graph ani. So let's plug in some values at again at t equals 0, b equals 0, t equals 10, b equals 100. Okay? So 100 ani. Ano to dari 100. Okay. No, so dapat sa during exam dapat mo pang-draw. So 0 to 100. So this one. And then from 10 to t prime. Okay, t prime na to ibutang kay wala man ta kabalon sana sa time. Integral of dv. Now dire, no, crucial na dire. Dili na 0 from 10 man ka nagsugod. So from dili 10. Velocity unsa ang velocity sa, by the way, ito sa complete. Acceleration is negative 2 dt. So at time equals 10, so 10 ka nag-start, unsa ang velocity niya? 100. So 100 dili. T prime v. Okay, therefore mahimong v minus 100 is equal to negative 2 t 10 to t prime. Okay? Anyway, later on na natin i-substitute yung t prime. T na lang sa ating denote. So v is equal to 100 minus 2t 120. Ma? So v is equal to 20 naman, 20. Negative 2t plus 120. So that is the equation of negative 2t plus 120 again. At t equals 10, velocity is 100. T equals, okay. Okay, so given man tani no, at t equals t prime, ba at t equals t prime, v equals 0. So ito ni plug in dire nga naman para makuha na to ang unsa ang value sa t prime. So 0, negative 2 t prime plus 120, or t prime is just 60 seconds. 60 din ni. So 60 ni. 60. Okay. So ganyan man, pag abot daw niya diri sa 60 seconds, 0 na siya. So ano yun eh. Okay, so this is now your velocity versus time graph. Yung saan yung pagkaibalo nga linear o straight line, kani linear man yung equation, no? Dili na mo siya basta i-line ng largo, tanaw ng mga equation. Okay, just like this one. This one is v equals 10t linear. This one is v equals equation of a line. Okay, so since we already obtained the velocity versus time graph, we will now get the position versus time graph. Again, we will draw okay, so this is now the position versus time graph. So from 0 to 10, so equation mo S is, or ds is v integral of v dt. So at t equals 0, position is 0. Okay, so you have S is, and what is the equation of b? This one, v 10t, integral of 10t dt. So may muna siyang 5t squared from 0 5t squared ang equation. Okay, the equation is 5t squared. So this is second order or second degree curve. Second degree. So meaning, and since now just recall unsaon pag, by the way, just recall unsaon pag graph this one. No, this is just a parabola. Positive man, so opening upward ni. And unsaon mga value, so at t is equal to 10, s is equal to 500. 500 meter. Sa 500 meter din yun, dali. Kung dali na siya, paano na siya? No, 500. Importante po no sa pag-graph nga sakto ang opening kung ana na yung pag-drawing ana wrong na no, dapat ka mo draw na. And then from 10 to 60 kaya nakuha naman na itong value nga 60 yan eh. What is the equation? So ds integral of v. What is the v? This one, negative 2t plus 120 dt. Integrated from this one, 10, 60. So 10 to 6 to t. This one is unsang value sa 500. S. So may muning S minus 500 is equal to negative t squared plus 120t from 10 to t. Tama? So ang equation ano niya karon will be, ano lang na i-plug in, ang equation na would be negative negative t squared plus 120t minus 600. Okay? Wala ni akong i-ikuha na. Again, I repeat, negative t squared plus 120t minus 600. So, negative man na siya di ay plug in mo na unsang at t equals 60, s is equal to, plug in na mo ang value sa time dire. You will get 3,000. 3,000 di ay ni dire. So ito na to ana. So since negative man eh, so pag downward ni ana. No? That's it. Mo na siya ang equation ano niya karon is S is equal to plus 120t minus 600. This one is S is equal to, okay, so we are now able to get the velocity and position versus time curve. So ang question nga, how far has the car traveled? So kani ano siya, 3,000 no? 3,000 meters. So that's it. Napay mga examples sa book like how to draw the velocity versus position, acceleration versus position. Anyway, the same raman sila og concept. So just practice.